All right. Okay. As we could say Shabbaton Shalom. um, we are at Sukkot. It is Sukkot 2019. We up here celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles. It is the first day of Sukkot. And today we're going to deal with some of the kind of principles of Sukkot, some of the meanings of what these days and these times represent. And we're going to look over in Leviticus 23 and talk about the command that is given for us when we remember and memorialize these days and these times. So we are going to get right to it and look over at Leviticus 23. And we're going to read from, 33 through the end. And then we'll talk about a couple key verses after we look at that. So go ahead and read verse 33 till the end of the chapter.
All right, Leviticus 23, verse 33. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, On the 15th day of this seventh new moon is the festival of Sukkot, for 7 days to Yahweh. On the first day is a set-apart gathering. You do no servile work. For 7 days you bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh. On the 8th day there shall be a set-apart gathering for you, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh. It is a closing festival. You do no servile work. These are the appointed times of Yahweh, which you proclaim as set-apart gatherings, to bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh, an ascending offering and a grain offering, a slaughtering and a drink offerings, as commanded for every day, besides the Sabbaths of Yahweh, and beside your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your voluntary offerings which you give to Yahweh. On the 15th day of the seventh new moon, when you gather in the fruit of the land, celebrate the festival of Yahweh for 7 days. On the first day is a rest, and on the 8th day a rest. And you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of good trees, branches of palm trees, twigs of leafy trees, and willows of the stream, and shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim for 7 days. And you shall celebrate it as a festival to Yahweh for 7 days in the year, a law forever in your generations. Celebrate it in the seventh new moon. Dwell in booths for 7 days. All who are native born in Israel dwell in booths, so that your generations know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim, or Egypt. I am Yahweh your Elohim. Thus did Moshe speak to the appointed times of Yahweh to the children of Israel.
Okay, very good. So we see a couple things in there. Just backing up to 24 on the 15th day of the 7th month is the festival of Sukkot. That is according to our reckoning right now. This is the 15th day of the 7th month. And so we are even right now, having our set apart gathering, where we're treating this as a Shabbat, where we gather and we do no work. So that's today. But what I want to concentrate on all the way down here with verse 42. Talk about this a little bit. 42, where it says to dwell in booths 7 days. All who are native born in Israel dwell in booths. So let's look at this a little bit here. Let me pull this up. Wait a second. Let me. Let me pull this up here. We can look at some of these things here. I want to look at this word over here. First of all, to dwell. Okay, it says to dwell in booths. So that word in the Hebrew is yashab. Yashab. It means to sit down, specifically as judge in ambush. This is interesting when you think about this idea of sitting down in ambush. Because if you're sitting down in ambush, you're kind of just where it talks about in the Torah, if you was to lay wait and wait for somebody and then kill them, then that would be an instance where you was actually worthy of death. Like if you accidentally kill somebody, then you could also, I guess, you could also be killed. But the person who accidentally killed the person could actually go to the city of refuge and not be killed. But if you laid wait, right? If you was kind of ambushing them, if you was sitting back somewhere waiting for the perfect opportunity, that's how you would ambush. If you sit up there and watch these little cop programs where they have the little detectives and things where they're setting up an ambush, they're like off to the side, they're sitting back waiting and watching, and waiting for the opportune time. So when we look at this word yashab, it has that kind of idea going along with it, with the idea of sitting down, but you're resting there for a while, right? You're remaining there. Even it says to marry. So you think about marry, that kind of means a long time too, right? Marry. Right. It's not like a short thing, right?
Right.
Abiding and continuing. All of these things, enduring, habitation. All of these things is incorporated in this word yashab, where we are to do this in booths, right? So when we think about this word yashab, I wanted to, I guess, on the oh wait, you know what I could do? Could do this. Let me see. I don't even got it right. I can just do this. Okay, let's. Oh, it won't be on there. Chastisement. Okay, hold on 1 second here. Let me see something here. I don't know how that happened. Okay, let's look at this over here. I want to see. Okay, very good. Look at that. All right, so this word yashab, this word Yashab, if you look on the screen here, we have a yod, which is this little arm with the hand right there. The sheen is the two front teeth, and the bait is the tent plan, the floor plan, the blueprints for the house. So when we think about this idea of yashab, which means to dwell, we see that you have with the sheen, with the two front teeth, it has the idea of pressing. Because that's what you do with your front teeth. You press with your front teeth, you press down on the food, and so it has the idea of pressing into the house, because the tent plan is it gives you the idea of the house. It's the plan of the house. So it kind of gives you the idea of the house. So you're pressing into the house, and then you're doing it with the thing that you use for work, which is your arm and your hand. So you're kind of strongly and intentionally and intently pressing into the house, the place that you would stay at. So we see all of this inside this idea of dwelling, but again, we're not just kind of dwelling, we're dwelling, it says, in booths. We're dwelling in booths. So we're having this intentional pressing into the house. So just thinking about that, when we think about Sukkot, we think about these times, probably all of most times, days, but like for us, I guess it's kind of tradition, I guess, the way we do it. Some people don't go anywhere. They just maybe in their backyards or whatever might put a tent or go somewhere. But we always kind of had this thing where we're like going away to like a place that's potentially far that we're going to. But we think about these times, and especially this time, since we retreat for it, we prepare for it, we get ready for it. We think about it basically all year, like where it's going to be, how we're going to get there, and all of these things, and we make provisions for it, provisions to get there. So when you think about if in the scriptures where it talks about Sukkot and all of the sacrifices that are given for, hold on, let me see. Is it Numbers, I think? Let me see. Because the amount of sacrifices that are given for Sukkot is quite, it's amazing. It's pretty amazing how much is being brought. Let me see if I can find it on the fly without any. Is it Numbers chapter? No, that's trumpets. Is it 16? No, it's not 16. Okay, hold on one second. Let me see if I can just think about where this is. Where it talks about all of the offerings for Sukkot. Huh?
No, I'm just saying you said Sukkot. Okay.
Let's see if it is. Oh yeah. Okay. Very good. Numbers 29. Let me just go there real quick. I don't want to read it all, but it's just. Oh wait, I can't. Okay, I just want to kind of just glance over, really. But Numbers 29, starting with the 12th verse, all the way through the end of the chapter, talks about all of the offerings that are brought. So the first day you had 13 young bullocks, 2 rams, 14 lambs of the first year without blemish. And then you had your meat offering, you had your meal offering, and then you had 1 kid of goats uh, as a burnt offering. So that's for the first day. So just to think about all of those animals that you had to get together, you couldn't just kind of just at the last minute say, all right, I'm gonna get all of these 13 young bullocks and 14 lambs of the first year. Yeah, you'd have to like search through them, like, right. So there's kind of like a preparation process.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that's just for the first day. So for the second day, you had 12 young bullocks and 14 lambs, and then the same thing with the burnt offering. And then on the third day, you had 11 bullocks and 2 rams and 14 lambs, all of the first year without blemish. And you had to, and then on the fourth day, you had 10 bullocks and 2 rams and 14 lambs without blemish, and a meal offering and a goat for sin. And then on the fifth day, it just keeps on going like this all the way through, right? So it wasn't just like, oh, Sukkot is here. All right, let's go up here and do it. Whether you was doing it, well, it was actually a pilgrimage feast, so you was going somewhere for it. But regardless, there was some anticipation, there was some intention, and there was much preparation to get ready for it. So, of course, we don't have all of these things. We don't have a temple. We're not sacrificing. But the idea of anticipation, of preparation, these things are all there, right? Because we have to prepare to go somewhere, wherever that's going to be, and dwell. Because remember, you're on an ambush. You're about to set up shop somewhere and get ready for this thing that you're about to do. Good. Right. Right. So you had to get your time together. How whatever that took. So there's the amount of preparation was not minute, right? It was immense, right? So okay, so right. So we think about that, what they did. Like, it's hard for us to just get out of the city and come out here to the country and have our little carloads and things. That's a lot.
Right.
But it's not as if it's kind of just isolated to what we doing. If we think about it in the context of Sukkot as it was created, it's always been like this. Whether we're packing up carloads or we're packing up our camels or whatever we're doing to get
Right.
to get to where we going. And you're pressing to get here, like with the teeth, right? It's you're pressing in. There's things that's trying to get in the way, and you're just biting through those things with your two front teeth there and your strong arm and hand. You're pressing and you're punching and swinging to get into the house, to dwell. Okay, let's go back over here to 23 because we want to look at some other things. Let me stop this sharing thing.
Like a real teacher and your projector up.
Okay, so that's the idea of dwelling, right? Dwelling is not just about sitting and staying and continuing, but doing all the things that's necessary in order to sit and dwell, right? All of those things are incorporated. So we also want to look at this. Let's see here. Okay. So this word yashab is connected to because when we look at, let me see, when we look at this word yashab, it looks like it's not exactly, but it looks like something else to shuv. But when we look in the definition over here, you do have this idea of a return. And you do have this idea of bringing again to a place. So when we think about the idea of teshuv, like teshuvah or turning, we think of as repenting. This is not that word, but it's close to it in the way that it even is spelled, but also in the definition over here of yashab, you still have that same kind of idea of a return and a turning. And then we also see what we talked about in terms of the intention of pressing into the tent using the strength of the arm and that hand in order to do it. Okay, so let's see. We are commanded to do this in booths. In booths, right? So let's look at this word. We know that we should know at this point, but we want to reiterate. Booths, this word is, if I can click on it, sukkah, which is a hut or lair, a booth or cottage. Let me put this over here. A pavilion, tabernacle, or tent. We have our purists who would say that if your sukkah is not made out of wood with branches as the roof, that ain't no booth. You ain't doing it right. Yeah, yeah. My tent is just a regular tent. That's
21st century.
That's what we doing in the 21st century over there. Like we got some modern advances that allows for us to actually keep the elements out. But I think that when we think about what maybe to make the argument for the purists, when you are able to dwell in these booths that don't all the way shield you from the elements, we see really what the main focus of the wilderness was, which was this trying and humbling experience that the Most High put Israel through, right? So I mean, for us, if it's cold out, for us to be in a tent like a 2019 tent, you're feeling, you're getting the thing, right? But you get it more if the hawk is like getting through all them crevices in your little branches that you covered your little thing with, or it starts to rain and that water starts just coming through. Like if it's raining and you're like under the cover of woods, it's gonna give you some kind of reprise from it because it's not gonna be direct, but that water's still getting through there. But I think the idea is that that we understand what the process was, coming through the wilderness. It was a hard process. It was a process that was intended, intentionally intended by the Most High to prove the people that they was going to remain faithful and trust in the Almighty. Um, so we're able to get that thought process from it. We're able to get this idea. We're staying in these temporary dwellings, whether it be the tent or whether it be these luxury cabins that
These
we
four
in.
walls we got.
It's this place that's not our regular home that we come to for these specific reasons, right? So we come out here and we dwell in these places. Um, let's look. Okay, good.
To add, I don't know if this would add to the purest concept, but I know a lot of people like to stay outside as much as possible.
Yeah.
They try not to come inside, whether it be in their backyard or
Mm-hmm.
out. They say be outside to do all your eating outside, do as much
Mm-hmm.
outside to, like you're saying, to replicate those conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that when you think about it in that way, when we have kind of a general kind of commanding in terms of, now we got to figure out what dwelling in booths means. But whenever you figure out what that is, then now you have this command to try to walk this thing out. Um, Whether it be to that extent where I'm trying to, as much as possible, just to kind of be outside, or you're eating all my meals in the tent. Now some people do, or spending a certain amount of time in their booths, throughout the 7 days or whatever. Whatever that is, I think when you get to that, that's kind of, the halakhic aspects of it. We had the command, and then how to actually do the command is like this other thing, you know, um, which would be different, depending on the individuals. But the key is that whatever it is that it means to dwell in booths, that's what we have to be doing for these 7 days, right? As Israel, right? We say that we are Israel, right? This is what we need to be doing at these times. Because the command, we have it right there in verse 42: all who are native born in Israel dwell in booths. Okay, so when we think about this idea of dwelling in booths, again, now when we look back at Israel, now the Most High, they of course had their booths, and they were set up according to the specific tribes all around the tabernacle. So they were dwelling in booths, but they were also dwelling with the Almighty. So when we look backwards at the wilderness experience, we see the idea of dwelling, the communally. For one, we see the idea of dwelling communally. So the nation is all dwelling together, but we also see the idea of Israel dwelling in a place where the Most High is, or the Most High dwelling there, right? So when we look back at Sukkot, it gives us the idea of dwelling with the Almighty. And then so when we look forward because we're able to look backwards and forward with Sukkot and see what it represented, from a physical standpoint. But we're also able to see, look, not only backwards but forward to the future fulfillment of the Most High, of Yeshua actually coming and dwelling with His people, right? So if we go over to John Yochanan 14 and 23. Let's read that. 14. This is so small. Mark, Luke, John. 14. John 14, 23.
And Yeshua answered him, if anyone loves me, you shall guard my word, and my Father shall love him, and we shall come to him and make our stay with him.
Okay, so when we think about the relationship, that this new covenant relationship that we have with Yeshua and with the Father, the whole point of this whole thing is for the Most High to actually come and make his abode with us. So the same way we think about this idea of dwelling in these booths, the same way we think about having this ambush that we was looking at, this idea of dwelling and continuing in this place, is the same way that the Most High, through his Ruach HaKodesh, wants to dwell inside of us. Right? So when we look at this, what we see kind of picture for us with Sukkot, when we look back, we see how the Most High dwelled in the midst of his people. But when we look over here with what Yeshua is talking about in John, he's talking about, if anyone loves me, if you're able to have that kind of intimate relationship with Yeshua, it says, he shall guard my word, and my Father shall love him, and we shall come to him and dwell with him, make our stay with him, it says. This is the goal, right? So so when we think about Sukkot, we're kind of rehearsing the goal in terms of having the Almighty and his presence dwelling with us as we dwell in the kingdom of Elohim, right? The kingdom is the people all together, singularly focused towards the kingdom and the king and whatever it is that he has for his people to be doing. So when we think about Sukkot, and the wilderness, and the wilderness experience was, this wilderness experience, but the goal was going to the land. They was on a mission. They was going to a place. They had a goal set. I mean, it took them 40 years to finish it, but they was going to a place, right? They was pointed in a specific direction, and they was moving there with the Almighty in their midst. So this is just some things that we could think about, as we are going through Sukkot, this idea of having the Almighty on the inside of you and pushing you forward towards the kingdom and the promises that are connected with the kingdom. Okay, also, let's go back to Leviticus over here. Back to Leviticus 23, because there's another part to this command that we see over here. Leviticus. Let's see. That's 25. Let's see. Hold on a second. I can't already see this thing. All right, hold on one second. It's 25, 4, 3. Okay, so let's see. We go down to 43. So when we think about the other part of this thing, of Sukkot, of this idea of the command that is given to dwell in booths, there's a reason that's put to it. The reason, it says, dwell in booths 7 days. All who are native born in Israel dwell in booths. So we see that that's the reason, so that your generations know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths, that the Most High is the one who made us do it when I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. So there's a connection between the coming out of Egypt and the fact that the Most High brought you out of Egypt into the wilderness, right? So we had to think about then, what is it that the Most High brought us out of, right? We think about Egypt, we think about Mitzrayim. What is it that we're leaving when we're leaving out of Egypt? Because when we think about our walk and our introduction to the Almighty, He brings us out of something. He rescues us and redeems us from something. When we make that transition, we go from having our carnal minds and our flesh be the thing that rules us. We get a new master, where now Yeshua is the one that rules us, right? He's bringing us from this spiritual Mitzrayim, just like he brought the children of Israel back in the days of old out from the land of Mitzrayim. But when we look at Egypt, we look at Mitzrayim. Let's break this down here, because when we do this, we see some interesting things here. Mitzrayim. We want to talk about what we're leaving behind. The thing that we're leaving behind. We know that we're going to a place of dwelling with the Almighty. We know that we're going to a place that deals with the Most High people dwelling together and dwelling with the Most High. But what is it that we're leaving behind? We got to know we're leaving behind, because we make sure that we're not bringing that stuff with us, right? So let's look at this over here. Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is, it says, the dual or plural form of this word here, 4693, which is matzor. Matzor, which talks about being the, in the sense of limit, Egypt, border, besieged places, defense, fortified. It's kind of helping us here, but this is, look, this over here is the same as this over here. So it comes from this word here. Matzor comes from this word here. Let's see what this do for us. Let's see. It's the same as this. Something hemming in. Something hemmed in. That is a mound of besiegers, distress. A fortress, something fenced in, stronghold, tower, siege. So we look at this word Matzor, which Mitzrayim comes from. It has this idea of being hemmed in, kind of, back in the day, if somebody was like to grab you up, they was hemming you up. Like if you got hemmed up, like somebody was like, they was jacking you up, like, right? They had you all hemmed up, holding you down, like. So this Matzor is it's a hemming in. Like if you got like, people that sew, they sit up there and you take those ends and you tuck them in and you make them be the way you want them to be, and then like you're changing the parameters of the thing, and you're making it be the way you want it to be. Hemming. Well, that's kind of what we see in Egypt. They took Israel and they changed Israel from what Israel was created to be, and tried to make Israel just be who they wanted for Israel to be, which I guess at that time was slaves. Um, Changing, the thoughts after those hundreds of years of being in Egypt. The wilderness process was a thing that actually you had to reprogram Israel and cause us to actually be able to understand who the Almighty was all over again, because our borders, our the things that defined us was hemmed in. It was changed and fastened in a way that was foreign to us. And it brought us to a place, of course, of being like fenced in, kind of like when we like when we go to the zoo. I guess it's nice to be able to go and see animals, but it seems like sometimes when you go to the zoo now, at least for me anyway, you go and you see these animals and they're all fenced in. Like it's kind of sad, like especially when you look like I don't know if that's like a leopard or a cheetah or whatever, that one thing that just be in there in that little cage just pacing back and forth.
Yeah.
Like it's mentally disturbed.
Yeah.
From being in that spot. And that's all I do is just pace back and forth. We just go back and forth. Right. It's depressed. Yeah. So the boundaries of the cheetah have been hemmed in and distressed. But that's a thought that we have with Miss Raim. And so we think about Egypt versus Israel. Egypt hemmed in Israel and altered Israel's borders, which are the instructions, of the Father. Where at that time they just had kind of the oral traditions that was passed down from the forefathers. But so we see that there that new borders and new parameters was set for Israel with the giving of the Torah. And so see that's kind of the first kind of business that the Most does when he brings the people out. In fact, when he says in Exodus chapter 3 that he wants to take Israel out, he's taking them out so that they could worship him at the foot of the mountain. And we know what happened at the foot of the mountain now was the law being given. So the whole point of Israel coming out of Egypt was to reestablish Israel's borders, was to reestablish Israel's parameters and standards, which was the Torah. And that was one of the main things that was taken away from Israel in Egypt. So when we think about us now returning to the Most High and changing masters, going from our spiritual Mizraim, our old master, to our new master, Yeshua, the same thing is true. When we come out of Egypt, we come out of Mitzrayim, we come out of this kind of state of confusion where we don't understand our connection to the Most High. We don't understand his character. We don't understand, what it is that the Most High likes. When we come away from that now, we're going into the opposite of that. We're going into the things that he does like. We're going into his law, statutes, and commandments, we're going into his Ruach HaKodesh, which leads us into that. So we think about leaving Egypt from a spiritual perspective. We're leaving Egypt and we're moving into the place where the Most High dwells, where we dwell in community with his people, with the Most High in the mix, with those foreign standards left behind us, with all of those things that disconnect us from the Almighty. All of those things are all left behind us. We see, let's see, when we look at this word matzor, it says stronghold. We have these strongholds, these things that are like tied to us, that are like holding us back. We're trying to move forward towards the Almighty, and we got these things that are holding us strongly backwards. And so when we think about from a spiritual perspective, us moving out of Egypt into the wilderness to dwell in booths with the Almighty and with the Most High's people, dwelling with the Almighty in our midst, the thing that we're supposed to leave behind us is those things that are like tying us down and holding us back and not allowing us to manifest the new parameters that are connected with the Most High.
It's hard to get people to leave stuff behind sometimes.
Yeah.
And you try to tell people, like, come on up, and they got all these things that's holding them back.
Yeah.
And it's like, just leave all that stuff behind and come. And they can't leave it behind.
Yeah. I feel like in a way, it's kind of, I can't look at people the way I think about it because I've been thinking about this as long as I can remember. So for me, it's kind of like a natural thing. Oh, it's Sukkot. I gotta do what I gotta do. Oh, it's Shabbat. I gotta do what I gotta do. Oh, it's just holidays. I gotta do what I gotta do in order to make it to the Most High, because these are his appointments. He set up appointments, and we it's not like a doctor's appointment. We can't be late.
Reschedule it.
You can't reschedule it. There ain't no there ain't no reschedule.
I get mad when they got the 15-minute window and you get there 15 minutes late. They're like, you gotta reschedule it. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would have had me sitting here for these 15 minutes,
Yeah.
but the guys are like that.
His moed times, his appointments are his appointments. So just like we think about this idea of dwelling in booths, is the same way we think about all of his appointments. He made these appointments. We have to intentionally do whatever it is that we need to do in order to get there. Now, I have this understanding because I've been doing this for a long time. So it's kind of like been embedded into my soul. But then when you try to tell people who just kind of just finding out about these things, I guess it takes a little time for them to have that sense of urgency and intention towards these times, almost as if it's like, well, it's nice if I can do that, but it's not something that's pressing.
Mm-hmm.
But when we've looked at that word yashab, there's a pressing involved in it. And the thing that is strengthening the pressing is that arm, like the yod in the modern is that letter that hangs. So we have that idea of it coming from up above. So even when we look at the yod, it starts up and then it comes down and then comes over. So it comes down vertically down and then horizontal still. So even though the ancient yod don't hover, it still comes down vertically and then horizontally. So you still have the idea of it coming from above. So the strength and the work that gets us to be able to push is that ruach. So So the closer you get to the Most High, the more push you're gonna have to have His set apart times be like more of a um, uh, 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 important priority is the word I'm trying to think of a priority in your situation. It's not for me. It's not like an optional thing. I tell these people, I'm taking off on this day to this day. I'm not gonna be here. So, however, whatever that looks like, if I get laid off, you could get my money, like how we say. But my priority is to make it to the Most High's appointment. So part of this idea of leaving Mitzrayim and leaving those standards that they put on us, part of that is this kind of thought process where I don't care what you talking about over there. I need to be where the Most High is at. Part of that whole thing of kind of being reprogrammed, moving away and leaving behind these ideas that Mitzrayim, air quotes, that Mitzrayim has put in your mind. Part of leaving those away is being able to kind of let these standards be reestablished in your life, in your situation, and setting your priorities. Where the things that are connected to the Almighty, these are the things that matter. These other things, this is just, those things don't matter.
They'll just lay you off at the end of the year.
They don't care. They don't care about me. They just want me to be there to do what they need to do. I mean, I'm benefiting from their thing, but really at the end of the day, if they don't got me, they could just call down the place and get somebody that's just like me. Mm-hmm. You do all this stuff. You do all this stuff at this place where you go and work, and when you die, maybe they might get together and put a card with some money in it and send it to your people. And then after that, it's over. They done forgot about you. Every once in a while, somebody might remember. Oh, you remember Tony? He was a pretty cool guy. Yeah, it was sad whenever he died.
Hey, at least they remembered you.
Yeah. And we spend all this time and energy that we spend towards these people that we don't know, that don't care about us. But what are we doing for the Most High? Like, we have to be able to remember that He brought us out of the land of Egypt. He took us away from the place that hemmed up our mind. No, we didn't even look at that part yet. We still looking at this matzor. We still looking at the part of the fact where it's talking about these strongholds and these fences and how they besieged. They done besieged your whole mind. They besieged it. And they fastened it and they hemmed it. And they made your mind borders to be the way they wanted for them to be. And then when we say that we follow after Messiah go in there with that little, like how you got them little scissors that you got to cut them little strings out. How you can take the hem out. He comes through with that seam ripper, and he cutting them confinements all out of there. But then here come us with our little needle and thread, and we fixing it. We putting it back in there. Yeah.
I really look at it as somebody asked me, we're in captivity. Why do you eat this coat? What I explained to them was it's in remembrance of what our ancestors went through. I myself would love to know what they went through personally, So follow the commandments that we said keep these feast days forever for all our generations. That means even now, even through our captivity. So what? You're in captivity. Just because you're in captivity, don't stop praying. That's absurd. that y'all made for our people, our ancestors during that time of coming out of Egypt in the wilderness. How he provided for them. But not only that, it was foreshadowing of what's to come, because it's for the coming time when everyone will go to the Holy Land, the set apart land to worship God. You know, and to be brought out of Egypt in today's sense, though it was a physical slavery and bondage back then, today is mental as well as right. Like I said, I always said, if the true seeker examines the fine thread sticking out from the fabric of lies, all you gotta do is pull it. But the problem is, many people sew it back up. So people already agree with that. And so it's very important that we do these things so that we can know when the time comes. And guess what else? This will come a time when you might have to build a booth. So who's better than practicing and knowing how to do it?
I think we'd like to be tied down. We're so used to it, we don't know how to get away from it.
Yeah.
We don't know how to, like, if you don't have to get up and go to work and punch a clock. You know what I mean? Like our minds are just, we're kind of in bondage in our minds.
Yeah.
That's why we want to try to sew it back or keep it together instead of breaking away so we can Sukkot away.
Right.
I mean, when you think about it, right? So back in the days, right, when we had our Levi's that we used to starch and iron and put that crease in the middle, right? And then if it was too long, maybe nobody did hem in your house, so all you did was cuff it and iron it with the not even that advanced. All you had was the starch spray and the iron. So you would sit up there and you would spray it with the starch your jeans and you would iron it, right? But if you kept on doing that over time, if you unfolded it, it would have that little, it would be a light line right there would be there, right? From your little hem that you put in there. So that's what happens. We get our hem, we've been hemmed up so long. When you take the hem out, it's like a little memory thing where it just wants to be like that.
It's like it's all we know.
Yeah.
That's all we know. Like in this, we creatures of habit. So it's like you get into a routine, it's hard to break it.
Yeah.
It's like it take that spirit, like you talking about, that spirit, because it starts within inside. It's like these physical things that manifest that we do, but like on the inside, it's like we just in bondage on the inside.
Yeah.
That's why that one scripture is very crucial. Being renewed by the transforming of your mind. That's very crucial. Because if you doing that, it allows you to cut off all the old. Turn into a new creature, which it says you can become. And I found it very interesting as well as appeasing. That I'm no longer interested in things I used to be. No offense to Steelers fans and those who watch the show, but I can't watch it no more. And I just sit up there and I'm watching it, and actually, I'm saying right about that. I don't even pay attention to that to this mind. And I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in doing the club. I was at karaoke. But it was a clean club too. And I still thought out of place. It wasn't a liquor here. I wanted to go there purposely because that's where we're covering that stuff. There's no alcohol, no drugs, no settings, no foul play, so they say. But I still feel like so that was just something I'm not into no more,
Yeah.
Like certain rap songs, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
I can't even listen to it because it does something to my real life.
True.
So that's how I know a person will know they changed when they change. They're gonna really know. A person can have stuff, fake it, but only they gonna really know because they're gonna find themselves not being interested in the things they used to be. That's part of Yeah. Now I just got one battle left. That's between me and
You trying to get,
I'm gonna come.
you trying to get the liver that you take from it. So you don't want to refix it back up.
Yeah. Okay, so looking at that word matzor, right? That breaks down again. Matzor breaks down again to this word over here, tzor. So we had matzor, which was the mem over here, but the tzor is the root of everything. Again, we're breaking down Egypt, Mitzrayim. If we break down that word all the way down, you get to tzor, which is a tzadi, a vav, and a resh, which means to cramp. That is to confine. So it kind of goes on the same lines as what the matzor was. Has, let's see, bind up, enclose, to put up in bags. It's really interesting if we look at the ancient. Let's see if I can put this in here. Sword. See. Oh, here it goes here. So tzor is in the ancients going to be this. You're going to have the. Let me put this over here for us here. Do this every time. This over here. Okay, very good. Okay, so the sadi, we have the sadi, which is the man laying down on his side. Man laying down on his side. It also has the idea of the path and the destination and the hunt. So when you think about the hunt, you think about the man on the side because he's like down, crouched down, laying down, in position to get his little animal or whatever. So tzadi again is that man on his side. The vav, this thing over here, the tent peg is the nail. It adds to, it secures, it holds something down. And then this over here is the man's head, right? So tzor, when we look at tzor, you have a man on his side with the nail in his head. A man on his side with the nail in his head. So you have this man, think about a man who's being fastened to the earth. The man that's laid down and he's being secured down to carnality. Yeah, the man that's laying down and he's just stuck. His mind is just stuck in the earthly realm. Like he can't get anywhere past carnality. But that's what Mitzrayim is. That's what Egypt is. That's what we're leaving behind. This idea of having just our mind just be stuck in the flesh. Our mind is just stuck in carnality. We can't move, and it's I guess really, if you think about it, you're dead. Really, if somebody nailed your head to the ground, it kills you, right? But even if we think about it from that perspective, when we enter into Messiah, we talked about this the other day. He is life. So he's taking that nail out of our head. He's making us not be dead anymore, right? The nail in your head kills you. All right. He's taking the nail out of our head. He's making us alive again. He's causing us to be able to leave Egypt, right? And we want to sit up here and take the nail and stick it back in the hole. Let's stick it back in the ground. We want to impale ourselves back into the ground with the nail in our head. Right? But when we think about booze, we calling in booze, this is what we're doing over here. We're thinking about the fact of joining with his people, Most High, all dwelling together. And we're thinking about leaving our strongholds back. He brought us out from our strongholds. He brought us out from the things that's holding us back. He brought us back from these imaginary boundaries that was created for us that are all against the Most High. And he's bringing us back into functionality and those things which are pleasing in the sight of the Almighty. Right? So when we think about Sukkot, we're thinking about leaving all of those things behind us. Right? All right, let me anybody have any thoughts or questions or comments about what we talking about over here?
I think that what you were saying about the whole starch thing is just so true because it's like you don't even, it's like muscle memory or something.
Yeah.
Like you don't even need to have anyone trying to hold you back.
Mm-mm.
You want to go back.
Yeah.
And I think about how the children of Israel came out of Egypt and they, as soon as things got rough, they wanted to go back.
Yeah.
Willfully.
Yeah.
Willfully wanted to go back.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like I don't know what they had, arrow point. It was like something got tough and it was like, I want to go back to Egypt.
Yeah.
I think individually, there is people who does the same thing. You know, it's called relapse. You know,
Like your mind is
yes.
so nailed down.
And that's showing that. You know, as I was told recently, that every individual should have a proof within themselves. So when they go through work times, if they do go through the wilderness personally, that they have somewhere to dwell for safety and can run and turn to God, you know, in their inner being personally. You know, these individuals that sets up these Sukkots, tabernacles within their own selves, in their personal walk, can then recognize that there is a place of refuge that they have built themselves for the purpose of weathering the storm of captivity, of the Mishkamites or the Egyptites or the bondage that we put ourselves through. Not that we all always forced into. Because you can only train a child to ride with training wheels for so long until you take them off and they know how to do it themselves. Like Tony said, you keep ironing that one part, it becomes a race. You know? It becomes a race. So we have to acknowledge that. So when we do build these roofs in our own personal being, we'll have a place to go through refuge, and we can also bring in remembrance. And it's not just because we hear those voices, we ain't gotta listen. You know?
Yep.
We ain't gotta listen.
Yep. Sure.
Now, so when we're thinking about this idea of this muscle memory thing, we see an example. Read Numbers 11, 4 through 6. Numbers 11, 4 through 6.
And the mixed multitude who were in the midst lusted greatly. So the children of Israel also wept again and said, who has given us meat to eat? We remember the fish which we ate without cost in Mitzrayim, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic, but now our being is dried up. There is not to look at but this manna.
So when we think about what we were just saying in terms of this idea of having our head nailed to the ground, Israel was receiving food from the heavens. They was receiving that spiritual food, right, from the heavens. They was getting that. Was in it.
Yep.
I don't know what it tastes like. Well, I guess it tastes like coriander, or it's white like coriander and tastes like honey or something, right? But it was the food from heaven. And they're saying all we don't got nothing but that. All we got is the food from heaven. But what they remembered now, cucumbers are like a vine vegetable, and so are melons. But leeks and onions and garlic are all things that grow under the earth. So when we think about what they remembered, for the most part, they remember these things that are underground, that give us this idea of being attached to the ground. Like with Mitzrayim, with this word sword, that again is that man laying on his side with a nail in his head, attached him to the ground. So the thing that they remember that they wanted to go back to, they wanted to get back under the earth. When they get in this spiritual food. And it's the same thing we think about with ourselves from a spiritual perspective, is that we who have been attached to our new master, Yeshua, we have a new master, and he is giving us this spiritual food and this spiritual guidance, and we're saying all we got is this spiritual guidance.
We're not in the equivalent of being of the world.
That's exactly what it is.
Right.
That's exactly what it is.
Wow.
Right? So we got to be able to turn away from that thing, leave those things behind. That's what we're doing up here at Sukkot. We're forgetting about all of those carnal things that our brains and our minds is attached to and nailed to the ground. We had to recall the fact that Yeshua came and pulled that nail out of our head and resuscitated us and made us be alive again. And to stop sitting up here trying to kill ourselves and attach ourselves back to the ground and be focused on the flesh and carnality in the earth, and be focused on dwelling with the Most High and dwelling with the Most High's people all together, being singularly focused towards goals that are kingdom oriented.
You know what? There's a word that's called, dealing with a lot of men and women who are accustomed to going back into prison and incarceration. You know, it's called institutionalized.
Yeah.
Many people don't understand. You don't have to be in a physical prison in order to be institutionalized.
Mm-hmm.
Because you be in captivity so much, you get used to it. You get used to living in captivity. That when you're family free, you feel like you're without the things you had in captivity. Right? Without being nailed to the ground. Yeah. So like you said, they seek to nail their heads back to the ground. To become from the earth again. Because they're used. That's like when you take the chain off the back foot of an elephant and put a rope on it. All you got to do is drag a little bit to see that he can't go. He'll stop dragging.
Yeah.
Eventually, you take the rope off, he ain't going over it.
Yeah.
You're trying to push him to his back and say, go. I set you free. Go. No, master.
Right.
We sick. You know, we sick, master. Like Dr. Beck said, we sick. It becomes that bad. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It becomes that bad.
Yeah. Yes. So, kind of wrapping things up, that's kind of the mind frame that we want to be on, the thought process that we want to be on moving forward through Sukkot. When we think about the significance of this time, the significance that the Most High set in place for us, that we're dwelling in these booths for 7 days, remembering that Yahweh, that the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob brought us out of Egypt and caused us to dwell in booths. He caused us to dwell together with him in unity, and forgetting those things which we left behind, Mitzrayim, moving forward into the Most High's will and His ways. Okay, so that being said, we don't want to go too much further as far as this goes. So we want to just say again, moving forward, that throughout this week, if you're not able to, we done separated ourselves from the hustle and the bustle, but everybody's not able to do those things. But still, even so, if you're able to just kind of somehow in your mind kind of move away from all of these things and kind of intentionally try to press into that spiritually unhemmed place and reprogram yourself. Because when we think about the seasons of the Almighty, the lessons that we learn from the seasons, I feel like from a spiritual perspective, the lessons that you gain from these seasons, it's time for those lessons to be learned in those seasons. So at Sukkot, from a spiritual perspective, it's the time for us to be reprogrammed, and it's time for us to be in that place of being able to move away from the things that's holding us back, the strongholds that are tying us back to that hemmed up place that Egypt tried to put us in. So we want to always be able to take full advantage of the Most High's times and His seasons, and gain from a spiritual perspective the things that He would have for us to gain. Okay, that being said, for now we want to say Shabbaton Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
And y'all willing, we will probably get you a couple more of these before the feast is out. Okay, all right, Shalom.
Shalom.